Hi everybody. So I wanted to share my inspiration from today in hopes that it might inspire something in you all or give you insights into your own creative practice. As you know, one of my favorite artists is Laura Horn Art out of Australia. But yesterday I discovered this beautiful book and it is called Painting Calm. And this title just spoke to me immediately because when I paint, I feel calm, I feel connected, I am just present in the moment. And the whole reason that I paint and create, especially on a daily basis, is almost because it's my meditative practice for myself. So it is something that, like nothing else, I've tried yoga, meditation, reading, painting just calms me. So I connected immediately to this book. And when I flipped through it, I just like this page is all on her sketchbooks. Inga Davis. I looked her up on Instagram and I think, how did I not stumble across this artist? She's absolutely beautiful. Her work is very, she has her own unique style, but a lot of elements I see similar to Laura Horn art. So she tends to use, Inga tends to use a little bit more color, whereas Laura Horn tends to stick with the burnt umbers, the yellow ochres, the Titan buffs, the greens, the browns. I see a little bit more color in Inga's work, and she focuses a lot on animals as well as botanicals. And I just wanted to share this book with you because it is so beautiful, and it inspired me to do a little search on Inga. And so I looked her up on Instagram, and I just could spend hours looking at her Instagram account, and I hope to take classes. And I just wanted to show you all just this really quick photo of her with her work. And this inspired a palette that I want to work on this morning with you all. This is my art poetry style. So I was very inspired by Laura Horn when I first painted this painting. It's titled Remember Your Breath. I painted this during 2020 as I wanted to walk by a painting on my wall that just felt good, where I loved the colors, I loved the textures, I felt like it was my own style. And I added the words remember your breath because that was so important to me at that time, and it is still important to me. I hope to include this in my Oracle deck that I'll be publishing soon. This is just an example of my work that I want to sort of show you as I pull the color palette from inspiration from a student of Inga's. So last night when I was flipping through Inga's Instagram, I looked at her student work, and one of the works, the palette just spoke to me. It was absolutely beautiful. It's that one I just showed you. However, the student had more neons in the work. So it was really hard to kind of show you where I pulled the palette from. But if you go onto Inga's Instagram and you look at that photo that I had just shared, there is a student that just pulled in a little bit more of the neons. And I'm not sure if that came out of Inga's class, but regardless, it just spoke to me so much. So today I sat down with my gelatos, my water-soluble crayons, and I just started to play and put down colors that I loved and that were kind of pulled somewhat from Inga's work and her students' work. And I love neons. I do have a neon watercolor palette, which was recommended by my beautiful artist friend, Linda. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Komorebi or Komorebi color chart. So the watercolor name is Komorebi. And it has this little Mozart symbol on the back of the tin. And these watercolors are wonderful, and I particularly love them because they include the neons. That can be a harder color to find. It's probably not necessarily archival, meaning it may fade over time. They're really trying to nail good neon watercolors these days, these watercolor brands. I'm kind of sidetracking, so I'm going to go back to my palette. So in this palette, I saw so many gorgeous colors that I have in my Ocean Paper palette. This is the palette I have from Kauai, and they sell out so fast. So I had this orange, I had this darker orange, which I love. You can see it up here. So many varieties of oranges mixed with so many varieties of greens, and I could see a teal in the student work that I just love. So I'm trying to pull out this teal and see how could I make it into a color I love and that I want to use. So I won't go through this entire palette, but I want to show you, this is sort of the practice that I love to do, is just getting colors down onto, this is a 98-pound watercolor book. So I like to paint on anything over 140 pounds, especially if I'm selling my work. This is just for myself. This is just an inspirational sketchbook or art journal, and I'm just getting colors I love down from something I saw that inspired me. What composition am I going to choose for my painting? I'm probably going to go with my art poetry style, which I will go through. This is one I made into print. This is called Poetry of the Desert. It's on a wallpaper label, which I find are so handy these days for those of you that sell your work at restaurants or cafes. You can add your QR codes and they don't wreck the wall when you put them up at the place you're selling. So again, this is a whole nother conversation. This is my painting Alberta Roots watercolor base with mark making over top. So again, these are wallpaper labels that I was just editing and getting organized for shows. This one, Find Magic in Each Moment. Love this print as well. It's just very calming, and I could see those colors from my color palette really working well in this composition. And what I encourage you to do, if you have watercolors and supplies, creating swatches for yourself of just getting that color down, not caring what it looks like, just enjoying the process of watching the color come off your brush, the water moving that pigment around, and then coming back to it on another day, or say an hour later after it's dried, and going over top with mixed media supplies. I believe I showed these little swatches in another video, but these are just examples of swatches that I've done. This one I haven't completed yet, and essentially that's what I'm doing with this page. And when it dries, I can practice mark making over top when I'm watching TV tonight. The possibilities are endless. I had some examples of my art poetry paintings here and sort of some things that I am working on. Here's an example of one I was asked to do a commission. So I painted 3 or 4 in this particular palette for this lovely client who's also an artist out of the US. And so this was one that I think I've listed, I'm not sure, but this was one that she hadn't chosen that I still really love. So it's basically that watercolor background with the mixed media elements over top. Here's another one. So these are sort of the style of what I want to do today. Believe it or not, I think I used a very, very cheap watercolor set when I did this one. I just love the vivid colors. It can be really hard to find that gorgeous fuchsia. So I'm still finishing this one. I almost see a little bird up here. I'd like to bring that out. Here's one again I was working on that I have not finished. Here's a mountain piece that I had finished. And the reason I'm showing you these is, again, they're on paper, they're stackable. You don't have these thick canvases laying around, these big canvases that you just don't want to kind of approach because of that fear of the blank page, the white space. When you work on paper, even if it's 98 pounds, you can just really start finding your style with colors, watercolor, get it down, and then add the mark making after it's dry. If you don't like it, you can cut it up, make gift tags, cards. Again, I'm digressing, but I get so excited. So I'm going to start my art poetry style right now. I'm going to put my palette here. Oh, I also had these wallpaper labels by Kathy Nichols Art. Aren't these beautiful? You can put them on your phone, you can put them on your computer, and again, they're just wallpaper. So I love this idea, as an artist, being able to print stickers on wallpaper is so cool. Just had to slip that in, and I'm just gonna line this up. Here we go. I'm gonna grab my round watercolor brush, and I'm gonna start by putting down this color that's been so hard for me to get. This beautiful iced coffee gelato. And I'm gonna mix it on my plastic cover over my table here. And I'm gonna add some of this brown from my ocean paper watercolor set. And I'm just gonna mix those up to get a dark earthy color to go kind of as my base, like maybe in the middle, just seeing where I wanna go. And it's not as dark as I'd like, so I might add, see if I can get some more pigment on there. I can always go back in later and add more dark. I'm gonna see if I can do, this looks like a dark brown over here. I don't know. Almost looks like it had blue in it, but that doesn't matter. It's great actually. It's just the color that I want. I mix my colors often to get the effect that I want in the moment I'm painting. Sort of what color am I craving? And the reason I'm starting with the darks, it's a little bit harder because you have to clean your brush, but it's just my process. I start with the darks and I put them in a couple places. And if they want to drip, I find a way to drip them. I also drip them later in the process. The next thing I want to do, because this is a really neutral color, I'm going to just dab it up so I don't smudge it, smear it. This is so neutral. So I could put in some of my brighter colors next. I think I'm going to do maybe that beautiful darker orange and kind of coming off to the side and up. That's really, really vibrant. It's quite bright. I might dial that back, and gonna move my water over here. I might add in a lighter orange and kind of play with that. You can see I dropped some in. I'm just gonna pull up that orange. There's quite a bit of orange in Inga's page where it had the botanicals from the palette I love. So I just love how this is looking so far. I have the oranges in there. I'm gonna probably go for the greens and the teals. And I'm just trying to remember what green I used. I think I used this Daniel Smith watercolor green that I had just squeezed out and put in here, and I don't know the labeling or anything. I'm just gonna put it on my palette. Oh yes, so that's a slightly darker one, but that's okay. So I'm gonna add that in maybe right on the side here, and then I'm gonna repeat it up here. I like that it's quite dark. I can always add in a bit of a neutral color. Maybe I'll add in some of this Daniel Smith. I think it's called iridescent gold or fine gold. I can always just sort of add that in and let it move around and add shimmer into the work. So it's sort of a neutral. And then I'm going to bring up that palette I had on my computer and just take a quick peek and see how far off track I am. I really like that teal, so I'm going to add in some blue to my green. I'm going to just drop in a little bit. Let's just try up here and see if we can get a dark teal. Add a little bit more of the green. Now I'm going to add a bit more of the blue. There, that's the color I like. Add in a little bit in here. And I'm going to now add some of the fun colors, the lighter colors. I'm going to add, I can't remember if I had this light orange in here. Yes, I did. I'm going to go for it and add my neons from my pan over here. I have several neons on here. The student had used these gorgeous pinks, but I'm going to mix a little bit of a pinky orange and just, I almost want to put it over here. You can see these are very transparent neon. There is such thing as going overboard with the neons, but you can always cover them up after. So that gives me an option. As you can see, I'm putting my colors down in more than one place on my page. I'm not really thinking too much about my composition. I'm just going with what I feel in the moment. Another Daniel Smith watercolor here, this gorgeous shimmery green. I'm not sure what the name is, because the way I work is just very intuitive. I'm just picking colors that I love and sort of seeing what I come up with and how it looks compared to my reference. I often don't use references for color palettes, but it's been a fun way to do videos, and I feel like it's expanding my practice as an artist. You can see the colors are really running together, and I'm just allowing that to happen. If they go too crazy and I create mud, I can always dab up with my paper towel. Right now I'm putting in this beautiful yellow as a neutral. You can see I'm mixing in another yellow just to make it a bit more yellow. Put a little bit up there. I always love adding in those metallics when I can. Go back to this metallic set. I'm going to add the iridescent gold right up into that yellow. And maybe over here. And I might just dab in that orange, dab out just so it doesn't totally take over my teal. And then I'm going to add back in another color that I really love. So I'm looking to see, there's almost like a peachy color that I didn't add, a peachy orange. So let's just see if I can find that. I'm gonna put that down right here on my table. This peachy color, and just see if that's okay, that's all right. And add in a little of the metallic bronze. I love that. I might add that in over here. And I'm gonna add in this mixture again of this kind of fleshy color with tiny bit of my metallic bronze, which I can show you. Again, Daniel Smith watercolor. Because I sell my work, I use higher quality watercolors, but I definitely didn't start with high quality watercolors. I was using Crayola dollar store watercolors, and they are beautiful, and they're fairly, considering the price point, the quality is great if you're just playing around. The colors are quite beautiful. They're just not pigmented, obviously, not as pigmented. Now I'm just so happy with where I'm at. I want to go back to that neon pink though. I've lost it a little bit. I did a lot of the neon orange, so just gonna go back to the pink. I'm just gonna be bold and sort of drop it in there. And maybe I'll drop it in over here just a little bit. I would maybe drip that when the other area is dry. And I'm really liking where I'm at. This is just a very affordable 140-pound Canson watercolor book. And when I'm ready to take this palette to the next level, I paint on my Arches watercolor papers. So that's the next step I am going to do. And I'm just gonna kind of squint my eyes and see how I'm liking this. Once again, I'll show you just this quick page of Inga holding that beautiful botanical painting, and adding in some neon is what I'm doing. And so this is that palette reference. That is how I got here. One more thing before I sign off and let this dry. I'm gonna add in just a little bit of these metallics again to just add out some shimmer so when it dries. And might just add in a little bit here. So whatever composition you're working on, if you're kind of learning from me, I like to put both colors on the page in two different places. Sorry, not both colors, the colors. Okay, so there we have our palette reference. We got pretty close to that with what I call my style, but hopefully you can find your style through this practice, because no matter what, our paintings are going to look very different. And then side by side, you can kind of see, again, well, it's hard to do side by side, but there's that reference right there. Okay, so I'm going to sign off for now. We're going to let this dry and we're going to come back with some mark making inspiration. Thanks for watching.